welcome on in to another episode of Getting Well with Terry and Friends, NHL season preview show edition. Today, this afternoon, or on the second show of the day, we are going to be talking about the Arizona Coyotes. Is this going to be a rough squad this year? I guess I'll start off with that. I can't believe we were talking about this before the show. I said that I think the Coyotes would have a better record than the Hawks this year.
No.
But after really taking a look at the rosters, I don't think I should have made that statement because unless Taves and Kane are gone on day one, this roster is pretty tough. So we're definitely going to get to it. I do seem to be having some issues with my camera, so I apologize about that. But we will jump right into the additions and subtractions for the Coyotes. And as you can see, they subtracted quite a few guys here. The bigger names, I guess you could say, would be Kessel. Everybody else is kind of somebody that if you're getting rid of them, it's not going to be a heartbreaker. Even Kessel leaving isn't a heartbreaker, but Kessel, maybe their best player on this list. Looking at the additions, not a whole lot. Fourth line guys, a third goalie and John Gillies. Not a whole lot. Arizona's pretty much content with just adding fourth and third liners, big contracts. They want to get as many draft picks as they can. It's definitely a smart move, but it's going to make a tough team for the Coyote fans that do exist. It's going to be a tough year for them. I'm pretty sure here in this one. What do you think, Alex? Additions and subtractions for the Coyotes?
Yeah, well, you started off talking about with Arizona, Chicago. They're going to be the two worst teams in the Central, but for different reasons. And Arizona is in the spot where Chicago wants to be next year. They're going through a rebuild, and like I said, they shedded some guys who weren't that weren't big needle movers, like you said, Roussel, Erickson, guys who have some talent, but they're not going to change the course of a franchise. Phil Kessel, arguably the best player, without question, on that list that's gone. And, him keeping his streak alive and moving on elsewhere, that's pretty much was the biggest thing for the Coyotes during that season. And now you're looking at the additions. Like I said, they're not trying to take on a whole lot. They're trying to develop the guys they have. They're loaded in AHL Tucson. They're loaded with junior talent. Like I said, they're trying to get more draft picks and accumulate more. They're starting over from scratch, and this is the way you do it. You got to go through these kind of rough and tumble bumps, and adding in a guy like Nick Bjugstad, who I've watched virtually his whole career. I remember watching him here at the University of Minnesota. And then, he bouncing around from Florida and Pittsburgh and here in Minnesota with the Wild. He's a guy who has scoring talent. I know that. I saw that firsthand with him in his college days. But it just never seemed like he was in the right spot. He had some injury issues early in his career, but, then it's never, he never gelled. He was always bounced around, and he had a lot of coaches, a lot of different offensive schemes he's played in his career. It's a lot like a quarterback. You look at a quarterback that, he's got a ton of talent. He's got a strong arm. But, if he's had so many offensive coordinators and coaches changed over the years, then, he doesn't really know where to go. So I think Bjugstad's a guy who can give you 20 goals, 25 goals every year. If he gets to be with a solid line and a solid system and gets to play a whole season, that's just something we haven't seen from him. So he's the brightest spot of the additions. John Gillies is a guy who can end up winning that backup job. Karel Vemelka's pretty much been the odds-on starter since last year when he emerged as a rookie. So the growing pains keep rolling for this Coyotes team, and at least on the bright spot, there's only going to be about 5,000 people to watch this on any given night at home. So it won't have to subject too many people to seeing this rebuild live in person every given night.
Yeah, for sure, and there'll probably still be more away, more road fans at the games than there will. Home fans. That's just what happens with Arizona. Taking a look at the top prospects and the upcoming free agents. When it comes to prospects, a few good ones. Obviously, with this last draft, Logan Cooley, Dylan Guenther, a player I'm really high on. This guy's definitely got some scoring talent. He's definitely going to be their top line winger for years to come. When he does eventually make the lineup. Connor Geeky, another center here. So Arizona's kind of looking at what Seattle did and is getting some centers here, which is definitely smart. As a Wild fan, the Wild have never really had those top centers that you can really rely on. And drafting them is very important. So Geeky and Cooley, two big pieces for the future. Genther, as I said, McBain came over from the Wild. Wasn't interested in signing with them. Basically, he probably sees the depth chart and got traded over to Arizona, and now has potential to be a big part of this team right away. Started off not too bad last year. We'll probably be looking for a bigger spot, and then Victor Soderstrom on defense. I'll also be looking to try to make the lineup this year. When it comes to upcoming free agents, a lot of guys that you'd be okay with. Andrew Ladd, I'm pretty sure nobody will lose sleep over him leaving the organization. Nick Ritchie, Bukestad, we'll have to see how he does. Christian Fisher, McBain, and Nathan Smith, you're most likely going to want to re-sign. Carcone, Gostabert, didn't do too bad. Gostabert didn't do Shane didn't do too bad last year. Obviously, is their number one on the number one D pair with the Jacob Chitrin. Who knows how long he's going to be on this lineup? He's been in trade rumors for a while. And if Arizona was smart, they'd be moving him for some young guys and draft picks. So that will be what they'll be looking to do. Connor Timmins, Cam Janine. Timmins a guy they'll most likely want to re-sign. I don't really know too much about Cam Janine. But Timmins, McBain, maybe Nathan Smith would be the guys. RFAs. You want young guys. When it comes to the old guys, you can let them go. It's not like you're going to be able to trade Ladd or Ritchie or Bukestad for anything worthwhile. So you might as well let them go in free agency. Alex, what do you think about the prospects and the upcoming free agents for the
Yeah, the prospects, like we talked about, I mean, they're loaded with talent. I mean, you just got 5 listed, but there's so many guys that are deep in this organization, and that's like I said, they're trying to rebuild things from scratch, and it leads to what you're seeing with the upcoming free agents as well. He said you look at those older guys like Ladd and Ritchie, and even Bustad. I mean, I made a case for him possibly being a good fit with this team, but even if he gives you 20 goals, I mean, this is a team that's going nowhere. Maybe you build him up to where you get some, draft value out of him, and then you move him. A guy like Andrew Ladd, who's at the twilight of his career, if he does have a bit of glimmering hope, he's a guy who's won a Stanley Cup. Maybe you move him to a contender that needs some grit in the bottom 6 lines, and you get something back for him. So if you're the Coyotes organization, you're their front office. You're looking at all those free agents saying, like I said, even with Gostisbehere, you're looking at what can they do for us in the first half of the season? How can we make them look better? And then we can move on with them, not just let them go at the end of the year, but move them during the deadline if possible and get something in return, get the draft picks we need, get the prospects that we're looking for to build around. And then those guys who are ready to come up right away, which Cooley and Gunther and Geeky, those guys, they're going to be a couple of years away. But McBain's the guy who's, like I said, he's going to be in that starting lineup. And he's a guy, if he plays well, you want to sign him and keep him around. But, maybe elevate him to a top line once Bustad or Ladd's gone if they get moved in season. So there's a process here with the prospects and these older free agents. And keep in mind, we'll talk about it a little bit more about, where they're playing this year. They're sharing a rink with Arizona State University. So they're an attractive spot for younger players. That's one of the most beautiful college campuses in the United States for many different reasons. And it's a fun place to play, to be at, but it could be a fun place to play potentially with these younger guys just kind of, going out there. They really have nothing to lose. There's not that much pressure on them. They're not in a situation like Philly or the Hawks where they're, it's a hockey hotbed and a team, franchises that have, had success looking to try to get back to restore glory. This is a franchise that, most of us have talked about, why are they even still in the state of Arizona? They should be moved to Houston or Quebec City or somewhere. So they might be able to play loose. And that's something you maybe want with some younger players. You want some structure, obviously, on the ice, but not putting too much pressure on these kids and letting them truly develop and blossom, that might be a good thing down the road for this franchise.
Yeah, that's very true. There's no pressure on this team. I can't imagine there would be any pressure on this team um, to really compete hard, or not to compete hard, but no pressure for results. Nobody's
Yeah, right.
expecting.
Yeah. No one's expecting this team
Yeah,
to, a 30-win season would be miraculous for them, honestly. And it's not a shot at their talent. It's just that they're unproven and untested. This isn't so much of a awful lineup of ragtag guys. We're not talking about a bunch of, like I said, middling 30-year-old guys who are at the twilight of their careers. You've got a couple of them in the lineup, but you got a mostly really young lineup that just needs more development at the top level. And so, like I said, this is a much brighter situation of the bottom 5 teams in the league. Obviously, like I said, they're going to have some growing pains with dealing with their new home ice and how long they're going to be away from it. But as far as once they get things settled in during the season, it's just they're just looking for positive marks. They're just trying to basically bloom this talent to make some noise later on in the upcoming years.
Yeah, for sure. We'll take a look at their possible lineup, what we could possibly see. Obviously, with the Coyotes, if any team is out there that will have volatility in the lineup, it's the Coyotes. There's guys here that I have like Lawson Krause that could very well find themselves on the third line. Ladd and Boyd, you could find them on the third or fourth line. There's really so much the Coyotes could do, especially if they do want to bring up some young guys and kind of put them out here. But this is what I came up with. Obviously, Keller is going to be on the top line. I think, and Nick Schmaltz. I think that's pretty much set. Anything else could move around. When it comes to the defense, as I said, that top pair is pretty much set in stone. But after that, it could really be anybody. Pretty weak offense, pretty weak defense. Goaltending also pretty weak. So Arizona doesn't really have too many positives here, except for the fact that they do have some prospects coming, and they will be in the Bedard race for sure. Whether or not they win that or not, we'll see in time. But Vejmelka definitely showed last year that he can play goalie. He's a pretty good goaltender with a really rough team. So obviously, I think he signed a 3-year contract. So he'll be here for a while. I don't really see them moving on from him. He's played well for them. And has he ever taken a lot of shots in some games? I believe was it Winnipeg that he really had? There was one team, I think it was Winnipeg, that he did really well against, and like 40 some odd shots, 50 some odd shots, and played well. So not an automatic fade, Vejmelka for sure, but he's not going to be able to save this team. Really, at this point, nobody can save this team except for the futures and the prospects in the future. But Connor Timmins, Brian Little on the injured list. Timmins, somebody you probably want for the future. You'd probably want a guy like that in the defense in the top 4. But not sure exactly when he'll be healthy. But not a whole lot of positives to say about this lineup. Alex, what do you think about the Coyotes lineup here?
Yeah, I mean, on a given night, especially from a betting perspective, this is a really rough team to try to back. Like you said, Vejmelka, he turned in a handful of great 40-plus, 50, and some 50-plus save performances, and they led to some wins. But this is a team that certainly, like I said, their offense can't really keep them afloat. Nick Schmaltz and Clayton Keller, they're great secondary scorers. These guys are not top-of-the-line scorers. Nick Schmaltz getting 40 goals would be that would be an incredible feat for him, honestly. That means he would be playing a lot of ice time, a lot of power play minutes, pretty much all the power play minutes to even get anywhere toward that kind of range. Same thing with Keller. They're talented guys, but they're being put in a spot because they're the most talented on this team to have to play well above the expected level if they were with any other club in the league. I mentioned Bustad. He can chip in offensively at times. But the rest of his lineup, Liam O'Brien's a nice young guy who can, get rough in the corners, drop the gloves a little bit. I like seeing that grit and toughness that he brings in. But this lineup is awful from top to bottom. Defenseman Jacob Chitrin's one of the better defensemen in the league, and he's making the best of a bad situation. Gostisbehere has some offensive talent and stuff, but I think, I don't think his career is necessarily just finished yet, but I think he started off with such a spark in Philly and then just kind of burnt out a little bit. Patrick Nemeth's a good depth guy as well. These are guys that can at least keep Vejmelka from facing as much rubber as he did last year. Like I said, Gillies and Provetov, they're going to kind of be a coin flip for the number 2 spot. When either one of those guys are in net, I would be looking to fade them. I'd be looking at playing overs. But the thing is, you're not really going to rely on the offense too much. You might want to be looking at opponent team total overs because you just don't see – I don't see where this team's going to score you 3 goals a night. I just really don't. Even if they're playing an up and down style, they're going to be giving up way more than they're going to be putting in. So this is a clear fade team. But the thing is, they were so bad last year, you're not going to get enough value on the opposite side, with any of these plays. So as far as betting goes, they're kind of an albatross. You can't back them, but you can't really fade them that much without having to lay some significant prices.
Yeah, for sure. And to know what those few spots where they are going to play well, it's going to be hard to predict those. Unless, like Ian said with the Blackhawks show, if there's a team that has a look-ahead spot or maybe a lot of travel, or maybe you can find the right spots. But it's going to be tough with this Coyotes team. Bit of a shorter show today, but with this one, but that's totally fine. Not a whole lot to really say about Arizona, basically, other than what we have. But we'll go to the last part here, looking at the last 5 years and the futures. Like I said in the Hawks video, same futures when it comes to point total, the playoffs, division, and the cup. And then the last 5 years, also the same. So pretty interesting results there. 57 points last year, 65.5 is their point total this year. How does this team get 8 more points than last year? I don't, unless these young guys really step up and we get some really unexpected performances, I don't see how this team finishes above 60 points. So for me, point total under. I said with the last show, with the Blackhawks, I want to be running to the window with it, but this one is a little bit different. I don't see the Coyotes finishing with above 60 points in this one. So 65.5, obviously with the under. No way I'm touching playoffs, division, or the cup. This isn't the right team to talk about those, but I put the odds there. So if anybody is wondering, if you want to put a buck on the cup and try to win $100,000, I wish you all the luck. But for me, it's under in the point total. I don't see this team hitting 60 points. Alex, what do you think about the last 5 years for the Yotes and their futures for this year?
Well, it's been disastrous. I mean, you keep in mind that first round exit there. That was in the bubble. They actually dispatched Nashville and then went on to move to the next round and then got bounced. So you can't really take that for too much of anything. They've basically been a non-playoff team for the last 5 years, and that's going to continue, obviously. Now, last year, the point total was 68.5. And I told everybody, I said, we're going to see a historically bad season from the Arizona Coyotes. Bet the under, run, don't walk. I even doubled down and was able to get money, and I lost this by exactly 3 games. I predicted that they would go 24, 52, and 6. They went 25, 50, and 7 last year. So I was that close to nailing the exact record that they had. That's just how bad they looked on paper last year, and they proved it. This year looks even worse. And here's the thing, and a point total of 65.5, you think, okay, well, there's no value for that. Like I'm not touching that with the Hawks at that number. But the reason why I would actually maybe look to play this under is because you have to look at what the first 24 games look like for Arizona. I mentioned they're going into this new arena, which is conveniently called Mullet Arena, which is named after the family that donated the money to Arizona State University. So there's a bunch of jokes that write themselves in that. But the first 6 games they play are on the road, and they're going out east. They open with Pittsburgh, at Boston, at Toronto, and then at Montreal, Ottawa, and Columbus. Now, those are some tough teams. Pittsburgh, Toronto, obviously, always at the top. Columbus and Ottawa are teams on the rise. That's a rough 6-game road trip to start on. They come back home for their first game against the old Arizona Coyotes, being the Winnipeg Jets. And then they have 3 more games at home, the Rangers, the Panthers, and the Stars. After that, they won't be back in Tempe until December 9th. They basically will play 14 games on the road. This is the same situation we're seeing happen with the New York Islanders last year. Now, keep in mind, the Islanders last year, their arena wasn't ready. So they had to play the first 13 games on the road just so their arena could get ready. Here, the issue is they're sharing the arena with Arizona State's hockey team. And because of the holiday break that they have in December, they have to play a bunch of home games. And I looked it up, too, while we're on the air. They have a tournament that they're hosting. So all of these games Arizona State's taking up, that's forcing the Coyotes to be on the road. So you've got 20 of your first 24 games on the road with this bad of a lineup. This spells doom. There's actually some value of betting under at 65.5. We might see one of the worst teams in NHL history. I predicted that last year, and they were pretty bad. They could be even worse than they were last year. We're talking historically bad to the point of, the expansion San Jose Sharks and Ottawa Senators of the 90s, or the Tampa Bay Lightning team in the mid-90s that ended up getting Vinny LeCavalier and kind of kicking off that rebuild. But they had to go through some growing pains. Where do you see 20 wins in this lineup? They'd have to come late in the year with playing against other teams that are out of the race, but they could easily lose a good 15 or 16 games. I'm talking about, regulation losses on those first 20 games on the road. This is going to be a brutal road for Arizona, and we don't know what the home ice is going to be. 5,000 seat arena. That's something that, like I said, it's a good thing they have this mix of young players, because if you had a ton of veterans who are used to playing in big 15,000, 20,000 seat arenas. Think of a guy like Andrew Ladd, who has played in Winnipeg. He played in Chicago during the height of the Cup run in front of 22,000. And now you're going all the way down to playing in front of 5,000 people. It's like they're being back in the minors. I mean, there are minor league teams that draw. I think I saw a thing. There's about 12 minor league teams between the AHL and the ECHL that draw more than almost double 5,000 people every given night. So their home ice advantage, and then you talk about the fact that, it's a transplant city. You're always going to have road fans travel to Arizona in the wintertime. There's no home ice advantage for them whatsoever. And even if they were able to develop it, this team is so bad, it's not going to matter much. So they're in the front running to be winners of the Connor Bedard, trophy, and get him as number 1 pick overall. They're going to be really bad. They're going to lose a lot of games this year.
Yeah, for sure. But they also have to get lucky, too, to get Bedard, too.
Yes. Yeah.
The NHL doesn't want tanking, so they have the draft lottery rules, obviously, right? So,
and that's the thing. And this is it. They're not even, this is not a active. I mean, it's an active tank, obviously, because they're not trying to build a team that can contend. But they're just so bad that even their A game may not give you a win. You look at Chicago or Philly, if they have their A game and, like I said, they have some budding stars and some veterans that are, still willing to put up an effort for 60 minutes, then they can give you a win. I just don't trust this team, even at a healthy full lineup, to give you a win against most of the league, if not any of the other 31 teams in the league. So it's just a rough situation for the Coyotes. They're trying to rebuild, and this is the way to do it. But I feel bad for those guys in that locker room. It's gonna be a long year for those guys that have to stick around, that aren't gonna get traded the middle of the year. They've got to deal with this night in, night out. And like I said, having that much travel at the beginning of the year, we'll see how their legs respond once they do get back at home and balance out that line. Now, obviously, that many road games, they will have a ton of home games in March. And I think they wrap up with, looking now, 7 of the last 9 games of the season at home. So maybe we start seeing those young kids come up and make some noise late. So maybe that's the time to bet on them, will be those last, dozen games of the year. But the time to fade them will be immediately with that first 20 or 24 away from the Sunshine State.
I did not know it was going to be that bad. When you're reading off those teams, I'm like, oof. like over and over and over again. Like these aren't going to be cupcake teams that they're going to face.
And the majority of those 2 trips, like I said, the first trip's all on the East Coast, but even the first half of that long road trip that'll take over a month, they're all on the East Coast or Central Time Zone. They don't get back west until the last 4 games of that road trip before they get home. So not only are they playing just road games, but they're playing road games out of time zone. So you're asking a lot from this franchise. And I don't even know what the preseason setup looks like because I don't think that rink's completely ready just yet. So they might have a couple of games there. Their camp might be moved. The same thing we saw from San Jose a couple years ago. San Jose had their camp in Arizona. It's a situation you're asking a lot from any NHL team to have to deal with these things and looking ahead and with just the league in itself. Hopefully when teams need to build another arena, they get things settled in time. Obviously we had the pandemic interfere with things, but hopefully we see teams not have to do this anymore. When they get new arenas, they're ready to go by October and they don't have to start playing, a bunch of road games at the beginning of the year. They can be acclimated to their home arena right away, just like everybody else, and give them a fair advantage. This is, like I said, it was tough for the Islanders. It's what kept them out of the playoffs last year. And it's what's probably going to make the Coyotes the 32nd team in the league this year.
Yeah, for sure. That's crazy, that start. Definitely, if you're going to want to fade this Coyotes team early, I can't see any way they surprise us. That point total, I'm really looking at that 65.5. So that'll be
20 wins is a stretch in an 82-game season. That especially if they start off that bad.
The Capitals have the worst record in NHL history with 8 wins.
They should.
Eight's tough. Eight's tough. To get less than 8 wins, that's tough.
Yeah. If I had to set a win total for them, I would. If I was a bookie and set a win total, I would make the win total 21.5.
Wow. Yeah, that's.
And like I said, I was 1 win off from last year. I said 24. They had 25. So I'll say this year. I'll spot them. I'll spot them 22 wins.
They didn't get better. They got rid of Kessel, and not that Kessel is like a top player anymore, but that's some. Not that he didn't really give them very much offense, anyways. But it's still one of your only offensive players gone now.
And Vemelka, we talked about it. Great of a year as he had, but he was a rookie. Now there's tape on him. If he has a sophomore slump, they're in a world of trouble.
Yeah, for sure. And that is the Coyote Show. Thanks everybody for watching. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. If you like the content, smash the like button. We appreciate all the support. Tomorrow will be there will be no hockey show tomorrow. It is the weekly football show, but back on Thursday with the Colorado Avalanche, Friday the Dallas Stars, and then finally on Saturday, the show I've been waiting for, the Minnesota Wild show, finally on Saturday. So super excited for that. But thank you everybody for watching. Hit the like button and have a good one, guys.